All right, and we are going to get started. This presentation is being recorded. After we conclude today, you will be receiving the slide deck that we're going through, and you will also receive a copy of the recording if you do want to rewatch. All right, I am Angelique Dufine. I am your humble host, the HubSpot user group leading for Lansing, Michigan. I hail from Inverve Marketing, so we do sales as well within HubSpot for the local Lansing market, but we brought in an expert today to speak specifically to sales. Mark, do you want to go to the next slide so we can cover the agenda? We're going to get a little bit into who Mark is and why he's qualified to present to you. Then we'll get to the presentation, which is getting to close. We have left time for Q&A at the end, so hold your questions, or if you really want to make sure you don't forget it, you can put it in chat and we'll make sure to cover it when we get to that Q&A section. At the very end, we've got a little bit of a wrap up and some information on our next hug, so hopefully stay with us. And we've got a really engaging presentation for you. Mark, do you want to go to the next slide?
Yep.
Without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to our expert here, Mark.
All right. So much. Thanks, everybody, for attending today. My name is Mark Sneider. I am founder and CEO of RSW US. I'm a 35-year veteran of the consumer packaged goods marketing services industry. Started RSW as an outsourced sales and marketing firm that supports the needs of marketing service and other professional services firms. Got about 50 clients across the US and Canada that we support, basically operating as their outsourced agency new business lead generation firm. So about 25 people that work for the company, and we're based here in Cincinnati, Ohio. So thanks again for attending, and thanks for the invite today. So presentation is called Getting to Close. Basically going to talk about some market tested ideas. We've been in the business now for approaching the start of our 20th year here. Talk about some of the ideas and processes, approaches that we've used to help our clients close more new business. So what we hope you'll walk away with today is an understanding of what's happening in the market and implications for marketing service firms, what marketing service firms need to be doing broadly as it relates to their day-to-day existence, stay relevant and looking towards the future, what works and doesn't work when moving your way through the new business development process, what marketers are looking for in meetings, proposals, RFPs, presentations, and pitches, and what you need to deliver, and of course, how to improve your chances of winning new business. So we'll start, first of all, by talking a little bit about what's happening in the market today. And the next slides that you're going to see, you'll see statistics on them that come from the surveys that we run annually among marketers and among agencies 3-4 times a year. So we'll start, first of all, some of you may have seen this sort of shift happen, but more and more marketers are now using project work as a way of, in essence, sampling agencies. 72% of marketers in our latest survey told us that project work is a way they typically establish relationships. And so if I were to dial the clock back, say 5-7 years ago, and a project opportunity came to an agency, they more than likely would dismiss it, too small, not profitable, or maybe they'd consider taking it on, but put the C team on it. Today you have to look at project opportunities differently, because it's really the path towards future project opportunities or the path towards an AOR relationship. And so putting your best team on it, you may not make the kind of money that you like to make on it, but I tell our clients and prospects to kind of look at it as like a financial investment. Is there more to be made behind it? Other brands, more projects within that brand. And so just need to treat it differently, treat it a little bit more seriously, because more than likely it's the path to future work going forward. 92% of marketers want agencies to bring insights into a first meeting, and only 16% do. Doesn't mean you have to know everything about the prospect when you walk into that first meeting, but just gathering up some information, coming to the table with good, smart questions, is really going to put yourself in a better place. And we'll talk more about how to approach those meetings in just a minute. But the reason why you need to do it differently is because 79% of marketers think that agencies just talk too much about themselves. Agencies typically walk into first meetings with prospects, pop open the PowerPoint presentation, pound their chest, and talk about how great they are. We want our clients and the prospects that we talk to really approach those first meetings differently, make it more about that prospect and less about the agency. Because if all you do is make it about the agency, you're going to sound just like everybody else. 88% of marketers say that industry expertise is important in an agency selection. As we'll see a little bit later on, the majority of marketers feel like you only need a little bit of experience in their category to be considered an expert. Rightly, wrongly, like it or not, marketers want to see some experience in their space. It gives them a level of confidence that you're going to be able to ramp up a little bit quicker, bring insights from other work you've done in their category to help them. So you don't have to turn the agency upside down and only focus on one thing in order to achieve that end. Just being able to share insights about the category is probably going to be good enough. And 67% of agencies think their positioning is unique. Marketers tend to disagree. They see a lot of sameness across agencies. And so really taking the time to figure out kind of what your positioning is and how you're going to message to the marketplace, thinking about category experience. Maybe there's some unique processes or technical expertise that you can bring to the table, or a bundling of those things to really make the agency feel like it's bringing something different to that marketer. Most marketers will take meetings because they want to learn about something different, get insights into ways of doing business that maybe their current agency isn't carrying them forward on. And 66% of agencies concede that they don't have a new business plan. So with that as a backdrop, we'll talk a little bit about what marketing service firms need to do to remain meaningful and relevant. We created this infographic probably about 5 years ago, but it's equally as relevant today as it was then. Basically identifying the 8, we call them animal traits you need to future-proof your agency. And all the stats came from surveys we ran, our experience in playing in this space as long as we have, and in order to make the infographic a little bit more interesting visually, we identified animals that we felt had those same characteristics. So I won't talk about why we picked the horse or the badger or the chimpanzee. We'll definitely go through these different traits. So the first is content creators. 89% of marketers say they read agency blogs, and only 26% of agencies blog monthly. You don't have to blog monthly. Frankly, you don't have to blog at all, but just being able to share insights. Maybe there's an interesting third-party article about trends in your industry that you can share with your prospects. These marketers are being asked to do a lot more with less time. And so they're looking to try and learn from people like yourselves that can share good, valuable insights with them. They're looking for good, strong strategic partners that can help them ride alongside and build their business. So just being able to push content out to prospects, show them that you're there, not just to win their business, but there to be a good value-added partner to try and help them, is going to put you ultimately in a better and different place. We saw the stat earlier, being selectively specialized. 88% of marketers say it's important that agencies specialize in their industry, but only 45% of marketers say you need over half to be a specialist. So again, don't have to dedicate the entire agency to one sector, but just being able to speak to that sector and give that marketer confidence that you're capable of bringing insights and ramping up a little bit quicker than an agency that brings no experience in their space. Agile and nimble, only 47% of marketers say their agencies are ahead of the curve. I run a separate agency search business. We don't do a ton of searches, maybe 2 or 3 a year, But when marketers come to us looking for new agencies, they come to us for one of two reasons. One, they wake up and they just feel like their agency's not keeping them ahead of the curve. They're getting calls and emails from other agencies introducing new ideas, new approaches, new technologies, and they just don't feel like they're getting that from their existing agency. The other reason is they wake up one day and realize that they're the ones bringing all the ideas to the agency and asking for their point of view and not getting anything back directly from the agency, with the agency coming directly to them with their ideas and their thoughts on how to improve the business. So just being agile and nimble, being aware of what's going on in the market, stepping outside of the scope of what you've been asked to do to be able to share those ideas with your client is definitely going to put you in a better place and make that relationship stickier and more sustainable. Partner, not a player. Agencies only earn a 6.2 on a 10-point scale on being excellent partners. Again, coming back to the fact that marketers are being asked to do a lot more with less. So they're, looking for agencies that can not only execute with excellence, but can also be good, smart, strategic thinkers. And obviously, there's some marketers out there that don't want their agencies to be a strategic partner and just want them to be a doer agency. Doesn't mean you can't drop strategic ideas into their world occasionally. They may dismiss them. They may eventually realize that, hey, this agency is doing things a little bit differently, and they're bringing ideas to the table that I hadn't thought of before, and maybe put you consequently in a better place because of that. Students of technology, there are over 7,000 marketing technology firms that exist in the market today. Back in 2011, there were barely 100 of them. Certainly don't have to know all 7,000, but again, going back to this idea of bringing different ideas, approaches, technologies to your client, sharing not only just something that looks interesting, but sharing how it could be applied to their business and help them improve their business. Again, is going to put you in a better place with that client. Curator contractors. So, 70% of marketers today are agreeable to agencies using outside resources. Again, I'm going to dial the clock back 5-7 years ago when life was a little bit simpler in the agency and marketer world. Marketers kind of expected agencies to have all the services that they needed under one roof. Today, because of the complexity of the universe that we're operating in, marketers are much more willing to have that lead agency sort of be that curator contractor. The last thing that marketer wants to do is manage multiple agencies and have to coordinate between agencies. If you've got a lead position with your client and you don't have, every service that they potentially could need, maybe begin to establish some relationships with some key suppliers, maybe a media supplier or a programmatic marketing supplier, maybe a PR partner. Just start those communications or dialogue with those partnerships or individuals in those different agencies, and just be there and be ready, to help your client when they have a need that you can't necessarily fulfill directly. Savvy competitors. So 63% of marketers expect agency consolidation to continue, to use, again, fewer and fewer agencies. So agencies really need to dial up their prospecting efforts. So with that in mind, we'll talk a little bit about what marketing service firms need to do to win on the new business front. Specifically, we'll talk about preparing for and managing meetings. We'll talk about post-meeting follow-up. We'll talk about proposals, RFIs, and RFPs, and we'll talk about presentations and pitches. So we'll start, first of all, by putting ourselves in the mind of the marketer and asking ourselves, why do marketers look for new agencies? What makes them unhappy? And I think it really boils down to what Leo Burnett told his agency in 1967 as he was leaving the firm in his valediction speech. He told his agency, when you stop thinking and you just start doing, when you stop creating and you just start executing, when you stop bringing and you just start taking, And when the apples that sit on Burnett's desk just become apples for eating and they don't represent the essence of who they are and what got them to where they are, Burnett said, that's when you take my name off the door. And that's when marketers start looking for a new firm. We see this every year in our survey among key marketing decision makers. We've asked this question, sorry about that. We've asked this question probably 17 of the 19 years that we've been in business, thinking about the last time you reviewed new agencies to bring one on board. Why did you decide to review? And these four things consistently ride on top. Lack of proactivity, not happy with strategy, creative, is always going to play a role, wanting lots of ideas for a new project. So I keep hoping that these things will start, declining in terms of their level of importance, but they consistently ride on top. And so for every agency I've seen with longstanding clients, I've seen just as many marketers who get worn out with their agency. And frankly, it starts the moment you start thinking about acquiring new clients. It starts the moment if you have an internal new business director, they pick up the phone and start reaching out to prospective clients. So we'll talk first of all about preparing for and managing that first meeting or that first call. And I'll explain what I mean about checking the boxes here in just a second, but you want that prospect to mentally check all the boxes as you start in with any pre-meeting connects you might make with that prospect. Keep thinking about the boxes leading right into that intro meeting or intro call. Keep it up following the meeting or call as you work your way to close. So what I don't want to do is walk into a prospect meeting and yell and tell and sell how great my agency is. I want that marketer to mentally come to those conclusions on their own, and I'll explain how we get there in just a second. So at the end of that meeting, I want that prospect to say to themselves, without me having to directly tell them, yeah, they've got experience in my sector. They've dealt with issues I'm dealing with. They've worked with companies like mine. They know how to listen and ask good questions. They're nice people that I'd like to work with. They seem to value my opinion, and they appear to be rather strategic. So prior to the meeting, gather facts, what you believe to be the facts, check the website, search news on the company, check out the prospect on LinkedIn. And what we recommend that our clients do is formulate 3 to 4 questions that they can use to showcase their knowledge and expertise or understanding about that prospect's industry or that prospect's business. So it's using those questions to showcase sort of an understanding that you have about that prospect and what's going on in their world. And then bridging when you ask that question and getting that prospect to talk about their situation, bridging that experience or that prospect has had back to similar experiences you've had with your clients. Suggesting to that prospect that, hey, we got our clients to a better place because of these things that we do. We can potentially do the same for you. How about we go ahead and set up another meeting where we can begin to paint the path forward of where we can carry you. So formulate 3, 4 questions that you can use. It might be a question about a particular issue that they might be facing that one of your clients faced, or a question about the state of the industry and how issues are affecting them. And we want to be ready to talk about how you've had to deal with similar issues, or maybe a question about some dimension relative to their target so that you can showcase your insights. So again, it's not coming out and telling them that you're smart and strategic and have all this experience in their space. It's asking them those questions, getting them to talk. They should be talking 60% of that time in that first meeting, getting them to talk, and then bridging over to work you've done, talking about how you got your clients to a better place, and then suggesting you can do the same for them. So what we want to remember is what marketers want during first meetings or first calls, and these come from open-ended responses in our surveys. Marketers tell us they want ideas on how you're different from other agencies. They want you to ask questions. They want you to demonstrate strategic understanding before showcasing creative. They want to see a curiosity about their business. They want to see thought leadership. They want you to be open to their ideas as well as presenting your own. They want to see proven capabilities, thinking and passion, new and unique solutions, and honesty. So those are all the things that they want during first meetings or first calls. And this is what marketers tell us they typically get. They get the agency's opinion, creative insight, highlights before strategy, a portfolio of past work, a sales pitch on how great the agency is, not enough about what you can potentially do for them. Maybe some cool examples that aren't really tied to their real world. You're showcasing work, for a client that spent millions of dollars, and this is a client prospect that's substantially smaller, and it's difficult for them to relate to that. And they get a lot of marketing speak. So clearly, a big divide between what marketers want and what marketers get. And what we don't want is you to go into those meetings and be the kind of agency that just talks all about yourself. We, again, want to make it about that prospect and get them talking about their situation as you kind of work your way through that initial call or initial meeting. So, prior to the call, you can email the prospect, let them know how much you're looking forward to their call. Maybe your new business director set up that meeting for you, and you're reaching out just to let them know how excited you are about meeting with them. Certainly, if you have a question or two prior to the meeting, don't be afraid to reach out and ask. Maybe position it as making you wanting to make the meeting as productive as possible for them, and they'll certainly appreciate that. The fact that you're asking and being considerate of their time. In our world, we usually call and confirm that things are good to go, just to make sure that everything's locked in for that meeting. So now we'll talk a little bit about managing that call or that meeting. So some basic rules. Just rule number one is keep the laptop closed. If you're face to face, just start into a conversation. If you're on a Zoom call, just again start into a conversation. Maybe have the presentation there and ready to share, but definitely start into a conversation with that prospect. Um, you know, Open up with maybe a very short, maybe about a minute introduction of the agency, thanking them for their time, and then tell that prospect that, hey, I've got a few questions for you, if you don't mind. I'd like to ask you, some questions about your business. If they come back to you and say, if you have a capabilities presentation, do you mind just going through that? I would go back to them and just say, absolutely. Do you mind if I just ask a question or two? Might help me as I kind of work my way through that capabilities presentation. And next thing you know, you're firing questions their way and they're doing all the talking. So what I wouldn't do is tell them or ask them to, the old sort of, general question about, tell me a little bit about your business, or the old cliche, what keeps you up at night? Or, God forbid, we should ask that prospect who we reached out to get a meeting set with them. So tell me, why is it you wanted to meet with me? Well, actually, you wanted to meet with me. So what we want to do is start by taking control of that conversation, using those 3 or 4 questions that we developed going into that meeting to really showcase your knowledge and expertise in that prospect's world. And always be thinking about the boxes. Always need to be thinking about what you want them to walk away with as you ask questions, hear answers, and subtly drop into the conversation how you've done that. You want to build confidence. Ultimately, you want them to check all of the boxes and feel good about the decision to see you. We don't want to be overly confident. We want to be smart and strategic in how you showcase the problems that you solved. And certainly when you can drop success metrics in, definitely talk about the successes that you've had in what you've delivered for your clients. Arm them. So, coming out of that intro meeting, or actually while you were in that intro meeting for 30, 40 minutes, there were 3 agencies that sent emails and 2 other agencies that left voicemails for that prospect. So what I want to do is make sure that I'm staying on that prospect's radar and in front and center after that initial meeting. So following that meeting, maybe arm them with things that they could share with others, or just as reminders of who you are and the kind of work that you do. Maybe it's a one pager outlining some initial strategic thinking, or maybe a one pager outlining the parallels between the challenges that they're dealing with and the kind of solutions that you've delivered for your clients. Maybe you never really got into a conversation about, all the intimate facts and figures about the agency, or never dove into the portfolio of your work. So those are things you could share with them. We've done stuff like this in the past with clients, and occasionally they may share that information with a peer that has specific needs that could benefit from our client services. So just keeping in front of them, keeping the brand top of mind. You never know when a prospect's going to be ready to make a move, and we just always want to be there, and wouldn't leave without an action step, whether it's follow-up info you're sending, additional perspective you want to present, you want to establish a reason to see them again. The suggestion we make to our clients is to say to that prospect at the end of that intro call, hey, you know what, you've given me some great information about kind of what's going on in your world. Clearly, there are some opportunity areas, maybe some pain points that we can help you address. Let's go ahead. How about we go ahead and set up that second meeting? How does the 22nd of September look? 1 o'clock. We can go ahead and lock that in right now. While you've got them on the phone or on that Zoom call, securing that second meeting where you can begin to paint those paths forward, is certainly a good way to go. Doesn't mean you can't reach out after that meeting, get that second meeting set, but as long as you've got them and you believe like there's an opportunity there of some sort, getting that second meeting secured is always a really good thing. So now we'll talk a little bit about how to most effectively move to close and post-meeting follow-up. What we have to first of all remember is that marketers feel that agencies are neither really good or really bad at follow-up. There's a lot of bunching in the middle. I'll occasionally ask one of our agency clients, how things are going with the prospect, and they'll, occasionally will say to me, oh, well, we met with them on Monday last week, and I emailed them, and or a few weeks ago, and I emailed them on Friday and called them on Friday. Following that meeting, it's been a couple weeks, I haven't heard from them. Well, did you reach out again? You probably should have tried to touch them a couple of times over the course of the 2 weeks that followed, and usually the answer is no. So there's always room for one more touch, and we'll talk a little bit about it in a second, particularly if it's a good value add touch and you're just trying to keep the brand name in front of your prospect and show them that you're there to share good, thoughtful content or ideas with them. Before I started RSW, I was general manager of a global research firm. Part of my job was selling, and I always felt like I was being a little bit too aggressive. I was always polite in my persistence, but always felt like, geez, hopefully I'm not going too far. But 9 times out of 10, when that marketer would make the mistake of answering the phone, they'd thank me for my persistence and apologize for not getting back to me. So as long as you're polite in your outreach and you're sharing good value added content on occasion, more than likely that prospect's going to be nice about the fact that you're, trying to make those connections with them. And we have to remember that few agencies close business after intro meetings or intro calls, and it takes time. It can take 2-3 months, sometimes longer, to secure business after that initial engagement with that prospect. So post-meeting, moving to close, it's one of the toughest parts of the process for a few reasons. One, you're probably not on top of the prospect's priority list. And not necessarily all of you, but just in general, marketing principals, aren't great salespeople. They're great when they're on the phone initially, when they're face-to-face, but when it comes time to putting on the sales hat and moving that prospect down the line, they either don't like doing it, they don't have the time to do it, they just don't want to do it. In our world, that's when our new business directors step in and try and help. But just nurturing is so key to success. generally speaking, making sure you're staying with that prospect ongoing is just an important part of the overall sales process. And then the other reason is, more than likely you want them more than they need you, unless they have a burning need that they're bringing to the table, right then and there that you could potentially address. So some steps to follow up post meeting, an obvious one, saying thank you. You don't have to necessarily drop them a handwritten note, but as soon as you hang up that phone or end that Zoom call, just drop them a line. Say thank you. Maybe recap briefly kind of what you talked about, what the next steps are. In that first meeting, you were trying to convince them how you could be a good strategic partner with them. Now you're trying to also convince them that you can operate effectively in their world. They live in a world of agendas and next steps and timelines. So let's start talking in that manner. So recap. You don't have to, FedEx things to them necessarily. Maybe you drop something like a brochure or, a portfolio in the mail. Again, this whole idea of staying with them, keeping your agency's brand top of mind on their radar. I'm trying to give, you any excuse you can to reach out to that prospect and try and engage with them, or leaving them voicemails. So, sending a FedEx or dropping something in a USPS envelope, reach out to them and let them know you did that. When you're pretty sure they've received it, call and just check in and see if they got it. Again, just trying to stay in front of them as best we can and add value. So maybe you've got a meeting set up for the 22nd of September. I drop the prospect an email with a link to an article or a reprint, from an article, something that you think might be relevant to their world. And ideally it ties back to something that you talked about with them during the meeting that you had with them. So just trying to show them again that you're not just there to win their business, even though of course you are, but you're there to be a good value-added partner and there to help them. And stay on their radar. If you don't get a response right away, don't fret. Pop in an occasional call. We suggest once a week for the first few weeks. Drop them a line with a new article, maybe or a link to a thoughtful post that you've written. Connect with them on LinkedIn or X. Not all at once, but just show them that you're interested and you're trying to stay with them. I give it 4 to 6 weeks. You can either sort of hand it off to your new business director. This is something that I do when I need to do it, and it tends to work pretty well. Is just come right out and say, hey, look, I don't want to keep bugging you. I'm guessing you went in a different direction. If you did, obviously I'd be bummed, but if you just let me know, that would be great. So, the social psych sort of factor that goes on, when that prospect starts to ghost you, is the more that time passes, the more they feel guilty about it, and the more likely they're not going to get back in touch with you. So if I can sort of lower that anxiety barrier and tell that prospect, hey, it's okay if you went somewhere else. If you can just kind of get back to me and let me know where things stand, that would be great. And more than likely, you're going to get one of 3 answers. One is the answer you don't want, which is, yeah, we went in a different direction. We chose a different agency. Or you're going to get something back like, no, absolutely still interested. I've been super busy. Let's go ahead and lock in some time. Or the other response might be, no, absolutely. There's still interest, just management's put things on hold. We're going to restart this in November. Why don't you reach out to me then? You're reaching out in October to try and re-engage with that prospect and start that conversation all over again. An ASAP. So, even if you're told by the prospect, hey, look, take your time. We're not in any hurry. We're not, revisiting this until November. I say, don't take your time. Be in a hurry. Part of this new business game is taking that prospect gently by the hand and moving them down the continuum of new business, maybe a little bit faster than they'd like to, otherwise. So just keep it moving. If it's a proposal that they're asking for, but they're telling you you've got some time, let's pull it together now while everything's fresh and present that proposal to that prospect. and keep it moving. Always be thinking next steps in any follow-up meeting. Always ask them if there's anything that isn't being addressed, so it's easy for you to tell them or them to tell you what's bugging them. We strongly recommend to our agency clients to not email proposals to prospects, because more than likely it'll end up in the email netherworld. The prospect receives it, weeks later. They don't remember, who you are. They don't know why they're getting this. Maybe they do read it and they start reading it, or they open it up and they see a sea of text and their head explodes and they just don't read on, or they read the first paragraph and something turns them off, so they set it aside. We recommend to our clients to get a meeting set with that prospect. Maybe it's a Zoom meeting where you can walk them through the proposal, or if you don't set up a Zoom meeting, but it's a call, maybe send them the proposal, an hour before that meeting or 10 minutes before that meeting, and walk them through it. That way you can address objections, control the flow of communication, and just put yourself in a better place. And close it. If they don't want to run, see if they'll start by walking. There are a couple of consultants in the industry, Tim Williams, Blair Enns, that talk a lot about providing prospects with pricing alternatives. If you do that, according to them, there's a higher likelihood that that marketing prospect will choose one of those alternatives. You're basically sort of ceding control to that marketer, letting them make the choices. I've given presentations on a social psych theory called the self-determination theory. I've given it to marketers that talks about the same thing. Basically, marketers ceding control to their agencies, letting them make choices. It's going to make them happier about the relationship, just put them in a better place, allow them to produce better quality work. So consider, instead of just one price point, giving that marketer some alternatives that they can potentially choose from. So now we're going to move into proposals, RFIs, and RFPs. So, both on the agency new business side of our world with our 50 agency clients, seen a lot of proposals, RFPs. I'm often, called on to review them and give our clients feedback as part of our programs. I see a lot of stuff on the agency search side. I've run over 40 searches since 2010 when I started that business. I've written and reviewed hundreds of RFPs and sat through, 100 plus final pitch presentations. And so I've seen too many proposals that aren't thoughtful, are cookie cutter, don't speak to the prospect in the slightest. And so if the agency isn't serious about the opportunity, then they should really ask themselves if it's something that they want. And if they haven't done their due diligence to determine whether it's a viable opportunity, then they really haven't done themselves a favor. So some basic principles, think about the prospect first. When you open the proposal, maybe talk about that prospect's objectives or their goals. When you're presenting sort of a process, process discussion about sort of how you work, weave in language about that prospect. Make it just like, the intro calls and intro meetings, make it all about them and not just about you. If you're going to talk about yourself, push some of that conversation, further back in that proposal, make that prospect feel like you've developed this thing specifically for them. Use half the words. Again, marketers don't have a lot of time. They're short attention span theater folks, so they don't have a ton of time to read through a lot of stuff in a proposal or RFP response. So, recommend to our clients, write it out, set it aside, and then give it another look and try and cut it down. Ideally, that proposal or that RFP can live without you. It can sell what you're trying to sell without you having to present it. I know that's, a little bit not completely realistic, but you should work yourself towards that end, and just keeping it as simple as possible to make it as easy as possible for that prospect should be the goal. Be proud of your work and success. I've seen proposal responses, RFP responses, where there are little thumbnails, visuals of the work, and success metrics are buried in paragraphs. bring those things out, make them bigger, make it easier and more enjoyable for that prospect to consume the proposal or the RFP that you're putting in front of them. Think about the UX, just like you think about the UX as you're creating a website for a client. You want to make it easy to use. You want to make it easy to understand. You don't want to put a lot of abbreviations of things in there and assume that that prospect's going to understand it. Just be very deliberate in laying those things out and make it relevant to that prospect. One suggestion I give to clients is, if you're asked to include case studies in a proposal response or an RFP response, rather than just dropping that case study in, maybe open the case study with a paragraph that explains why you're presenting this case study to that prospect, why you're including it in the response. It'll make it easier for that marketing prospect to understand and make it more powerful of a presentation of your case study work, if you do that. And it'll just make them feel like, again, you've really tailored this thing specific to their needs and wants as part of their ask for that proposal response or that RFP response. So now we'll talk about presentations and pitches. So the goal is ultimately to make that prospective client feel like you're already ramping up on their business. I ran a search for a casino down in Alabama. This was a few years ago. Whenever we run a search, we narrow the final pitch presentation down to 3 finalist agencies. One of those agencies asked to interview the key constituents within the management team. We granted that access. None of the other agencies did. When they walked into that final pitch presentation, they were sharing insights that really impressed the marketing team that neither of the other 2 agencies shared. And that marketing team ultimately picked this agency in part because of that, in part because they felt like they were already ramping up on their business and could potentially get them to market that much faster. Whether that happened or not, who knows? But it just created that sense of just, these guys understand it. They've got insights that they're sharing that really make us feel confident about bringing them on board and partnering with them. Practice is key. And the second statement here, I think, is probably the most important statement in the presentation. The way you look today is a reflection of how you'll operate tomorrow. So when you first reach out to that prospect to try and engage with them, when you meet with them and how you manage that meeting, when you follow up with that prospect and how you try and engage with them. Is it just all about checking in, or is it sharing good value added content to show that prospect that you're there as a good, thoughtful partner that can help them build their business? When we narrow that list down in our agency searches to the final 3 agencies, each agency gets a 45-minute Q&A chemistry call one-on-one with that client. It's more of an informational gathering session there to allow the agency to learn more about that prospect's business, ask questions about that marketer's expectations for the final pitch presentation. I've managed 120 of those, and there have been 2 situations where the agencies walked in so ill-prepared, diving down into the weeds, talking over each other, that at the end of that Q&A chemistry call, the marketer said, "You know what? I know this is not an evaluative step, but if these guys are going to operate this way in this 45-minute Q&A chemistry call, I just can't in good conscience move them forward to that final pitch presentation." And they were, eliminated from that search. So always need to be pushing it to 110%. It's hard sometimes because you've got a million things going on. It's hard to take the time to think about what you're going to do during that first meeting, but do take the time. Push yourself to really work to set yourself apart throughout all stages of the new business development process, and go that extra mile to show the client you really understand their industry, competitors, or brand as best you can. I know there's only so much you can know, but hopefully that marketer shared information with you. You've done your study and researched competitors in the industry, or hopefully something about the industry, because likelihood is you've operated in it. and bring people that are passionate about your agency and the client's business. Build your ideas based on grounded consumer industry business insights. Another search we ran for a food company locally here. This was a few years ago. I had 3 finalist agencies. 2 of them walked into the final pitch presentation with beautifully fleshed out integrated campaigns. We didn't ask for it, but they came in with it. Just, really well done. A lot of, creative thought put into them. I had a 3rd agency that came in with what I'll call mood boards that had visuals that I think there were 3 different boards, each sort of talked about a different strategic direction they could take that client down, and each tied to specific consumer business and industry insights. And so it all made a lot of sense to that marketing client. When we asked the other 2 agencies kind of how they got to where they got to, they really didn't have good answers for us. Nothing was really grounded in solid insights. And as a result, at the end of the day, the marketer selected that 3rd agency because of the thinking, because of the strategic sort of insights that they were able to bring to the table, and just gave that marketer greater confidence that they were going to ultimately carry them to a better place. So we want to show them, and I've mentioned this a couple of times, that you're, thinking not about their creative or communications assignment, but their business and how you can partner with them strategically. And wouldn't participate in the final pitch presentation unless you know how many are in it. Is the incumbent involved? Who decides? What's the timing? These are all answers that you deserve if you walk into any pitch presentation, and certainly wouldn't participate if you have to pay to pitch. If there are more than 2 or 3 in that final pitch presentation, if you can't talk to the client, if they don't give you much time, we talked about how you look today is a reflection of how you potentially are going to operate tomorrow. Same old screw on the client side. This client's kind of being jerky. They're not giving you time. They're just not answering your questions. May not be a client you ultimately, want to work with. So, quick recap. Remember, it's all about them. It's not about you. As you reach out to that prospect, as you manage that meeting, as you nurture them, as you, uh, present that proposal or that RFP, and ultimately, as you present to them, make it about them. Don't just yell and tell and sell how great you are. Let that prospect know that you're thinking about them and how you can improve their business. Remember, think about half the words, being proud of your work and success. Think about UX in terms of ease of use, ease of understanding, relevance. These principles hold true not just for proposals and RFPs, but in how you manage the process as a whole. Remember, think about checking those boxes, going to those first meetings with good, smart questions, getting that prospect to talk about their situation, bridging back to similar situations you've been in with your clients, showing them how you got them to a better place because of all the great thinking and things that you've done for your clients, and how you can do the same for them. And how about we set up a second meeting where we can show you how we can help you in a similar manner. And remember, what Burnett said, if you look at his valediction speech, it's all about adding value. That's how they build client relationships. That's how they sustain those relationships long term. And that whole principle of adding value for longevity of the relationship is equally as important in the new business development process. Just thinking about where you can bring value, throughout every single step of that process is going to, put you in a better place, make you look different, make that marketer feel better about the potential of ultimately partnering with you. So that is it. And I guess we'll open it up for any questions that may have come through.